This is a review for Devil May Hare, and with me today is that random turtle that runs away with all the animals in this short. I mean, what? Did you think I was going to introduce Tasmanian Devil? I'm not that predictable, am I? But it's my good friend Manny Cruz, the Toonie Tenor. Say hi.
Run away! There's another Anthony's Animation Talk commentary coming! What, did you think I was gonna make a Ninja Turtle joke? Nah, now I will. Totally awesome, dude. Cowabunga. Eat some pizza.
I think we all need pizza, and watching a short like this definitely makes you want to eat, given the devil's insatiable appetite. So, just a few bits of info to get underway. So, as mentioned, this is Devil May Hare, released on the 19th of June 1954. It's the 713th in the series, and it's directed by Bob McKimson. You can find this on the Looney Tunes Golden Collection Volume 1 DVD set. It was remastered again in HD for the Platinum Collection Volume 1 Blu-ray or DVD set. I have links below to both those sets, because you will not find it on YouTube unless Warner Brothers themselves choose to upload it on their own channel. It is under copyright. But in case you haven't seen this one, Bugs is minding his own business, cleaning his rabbit hole, and all these animals are running away, and they're all running away from the force of nature, that is the Tasmanian Devil. And so Bugs decides to trick him, since the devil wants to eat
Rabbits. I just had to
exact
say it. Rabbits.
rabbits. Yeah, I love that delivery. And in terms of trivia, there's really two here. I mean, the first one I'll quickly get out of the way. The title is a play on the saying "Devil May Care," so it's like a free spirit, devil may care attitude kind of thing. Most people would have heard it, but for the few that haven't, there you are. More importantly, and this should be obvious, but some people may not know this, so I'm going to mention it anyway. It's the first appearance of the Tasmanian Devil in Looney Tunes, and it's his only time in the Looney Tunes series versus the Merry Melody series. The other appearances are in the Merry Melody series, and they only made, what, five? All up? I think just five? Well,
That's
not
it.
many.
Yeah, he was only in 5. All she
Yeah.
wrote.
And speaking of she, we also see the she devil in this one too. So that's the first appearance there, looking very lovely at the end, which we'll no doubt touch upon. I'm not going to go too in deep in the history of Tasmanian Devil, but I read up on the history, and this short is written by Sid Marcus. And the story goes that McKimson and Marcus were discussing new ideas on challenging bugs, and apparently Marcus made an offhand comment that the only animal that they haven't used against bugs was the Tasmanian Devil, and that's what led them to do this short. Later on, the short gets released. Seltzer hated it and banned any more shorts with the devil being made. Jack Warner apparently said to Seltzer, "Hey, what happened? I like this character. He gets fan mail, and where are the more shorts with the devil?" And yeah, they ended up making 4 more after the shutdown. So it's interesting to think that for a character that was initially banned and then was only in a few shorts, plus a few bits in the Bugs Bunny show in the early 60s too, and that's it, he's actually in what, the top 5 most popular Looney Tunes characters. It's incredible.
Is it time for my hot take?
Uh,
Enjoy seeing your subscriber count drop. I was never the biggest fan of the Tasmanian Devil. And I think what it could be, boys and girls, we're going to go back to a time called the 1990s. But like, you couldn't go anywhere in the 90s without seeing something with Taz or Tweety or Marvin Martian. Tweety, he's relatively established. I get it. He's got the cute charm, blah, blah, blah. But for me, I was always like, why Marvin and why Taz when both of them were only in 5 shorts each? And also, I'm thinking too, because I had it on videotape, the Tasmania cartoon that came out, it's always been something that scratches my head. I think Taz as well as Marvin have such a huge appeal to casual Looney Tune fans. I'm not saying I don't dislike him. He's a funny character, but I just never understood the hype for him, especially when I was a kid. People have always seen Taz as one of the main Looney Tune stars, but yet he was in so few shorts. And it's just, I wonder what just makes him so appealing to a mass audience. And I don't know how other hardcore Looney Tune fans feel about Taz himself. Actually, before I even say that, Tasmania, isn't that part of Australia?
well, boys and girls, let me educate you, because I do have a feeling. I even wrote this as a little note, by the way. I feel that a lot
Ooh,
of people in the United States, well, that's how I want to say United States from around the United States,
in the
uh,
States, over here in
in
the
the
States.
States, don't even know where Tasmania is. They assume it's part of mainland Australia, but no, no. You got the mainland Australia. I happen to live in the southern part. But you got Tasmania. It's that island that's on the very bottom that's closer to the Antarctic. It still takes about oh, 4 hours to sort of drive from one part of the island to the other, give or take, depending on which direction you go. So it's a small island, but it's still big, if that makes sense. But just to let people know what a Tasmanian devil is, too, it's an animal, as the name suggests. It's from Tasmania. About 30,000 years ago, it was also mainland, but it ended up being extinct there. So it's just in Tasmania. And it is now the largest carnivorous marsupial. Yes, it's a marsupial like a kangaroo and like a wombat and so on in the world. Okay. And
Mm.
it is actually the opposite of what Bugs is reading Encyclopedia, which they eat pests like, little mice, I guess. And they can be vicious, but not to the extent that's seen in the cartoons. And they definitely look different than the design that was used in the short, that's for sure.
They
You
don't
are.
spin through trees or chomp them away?
Not that I'm aware of. And for those of you thinking to come to Australia, if you can swing it, definitely make a side trip to Tasmania. It is beautiful down there. It is. So you're saying you never really got into the devil, the Tasmanian devil, rather. Personally, I like the fact he's just this force of nature, but he's not too stupid. I mean, he's a little bit stupid, but ultimately he does pick up on things, as we'll see in this short when that's going against him. But I think he just appeals to people, just that really rough and rugged look about him, just the messed up force of nature look that he has. And it lends itself well to all the cool iconography that we saw. I know that you and I would have seen all throughout the 90s where he had the whole hip hop look.
If you show that to your kids and say, "Look, kids, this is what people in the '90s used to wear," and they're just like thinking, "What was going on during that time?" I guess it's kind of like how it felt like about hippies and what people were wearing in the '60s. But I know that I brought that up with Jonathan from This Means podcast, and we were talking about just that '90s hip hop with Taz with beads in his hair, or no, that might have been Taz. Yeah, beads in his hair, like with dreads and the backwards hat and the baggy pants. And I'm just like, oh God, the 90s were a trip. And speaking of 90s, I mean, obviously Taz was one of the featured characters in our favorite film, our beloved good old Space Jam. But Jack Warner, was like, hey, people have been craving this guy. And then eventually his follow up short came in 1957. But I mean, probably somebody in the comment or a few people. You know what? I encourage it. Spam all the comments why you love Taz so very much.
But I reckon we take a look at this short from start to finish. I mean, this is the short where McKimson finally has another breakout character, because I would argue his last true breakout character would have been Foghorn Leghorn. He's had a few minor breakout characters here and there, but nothing to the level of Foghorn until now, I would argue. And yes, I know you're probably screaming, what about Pete Puma? No, he was in one short, and I would argue that he was not on the same level as Foghorn or the Tasmanian Devil in terms of popularity. He's a great character, yes, but I would not say he was a quote unquote breakout character.
And I would definitely say Taz is his most famous creation. Personally, I like Foghorn Leghorn a little more, but there's no doubt about Taz is his most famous creation.
I would say so, yes. And looking at the title cards, and yeah, so as I mentioned before, Sid Marcus does the writing here. So not Ted Pierce, who was on a bit of a side trip of sorts over at UPA, where he writes an Academy Award winning short for Mr. Magoo there, When Magoo Flew. So Sid Marcus is currently on the team until the backlog from before the shutdown is done, but he doesn't come back after the shutdown. And we got backgrounds by Richard Thomas, and right away when the short opens, it's got that nice, interesting look about it. It's not the greatest in terms of stylization, similar to what you would see in a Chuck Jones short, but it looks nice.
I thought that it was a nice contrast animation wise because the characters themselves are not super stylized yet. When you think of stylization, you just mentioned what UPA was doing. But it was nice to see the contrast of Bugs and Taz, and especially some of the scenes that were animated by Rob Scribner, and seeing it contrast against the really starting to get really stylized backgrounds, like literally like a bush is a squiggle. Again, I'm spoiled. I like looking at the older stuff where the backgrounds are more realistic, but there's something about this particular cartoon, the way they style it. I think it's also the choice of colors because there's like a lot of beige and like cream colors going on. And I thought it was a nice look because usually when I think of Taz, I think of the later shorts, like, Ducking the Devil and Bedeviled Hair, where it's very green and very lush. But this first one, that more subdued cream color background,
It does its job of just saying, "Hey, we're in the jungle somewhere. Who knows? Definitely not Tasmania." But
it's not
it's
what?
stylized, so it's interesting, but it also has the '40s design characters sort of lurking around as well, all the animals, and really, there's only 3 characters that are fully animated, and that's, of course, the devil, the she-devil, and Bugs, and the animal characters are so limited, that except maybe that turtle. But I gotta ask you, though, that song cue that Bugs sings, like, what is that song that he sings in that beginning part, or hums, rather?
Maybe I'm gonna put you on the spot. Let's see if you were paying attention. It's the same cue that's in the beginning of A Corny Concerto. Okay, I'll just tell you the answer. It's the Tales from the Vienna Woods from Johann Strauss II. And when I think of that song, first cartoon I go to is Corny Concerto, when Porky's hunting bugs in the Vienna Woods. And now I guess we're in the Tasmanian woods. And I love, of course, Mel Blanc's rendition of it, da 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 da, when he's emptying out his vacuum cleaner. And I like it. It's a nice little spin to it. So now I can think of this cartoon and Corny Concerto for that particular piece of music.
Yeah, and the beginning scene even shows that even big stars like Bugs need to get their cleaning done. But you got to wonder, he's vacuuming up all those carrot tops. What does he just dump a whole bunch on the floor and then decides to clean up? But anyway, he's
He
a real
knew guests were
bachelor.
coming, so yeah, true back telling me about it.
Yep. And we see, oh no, what's this rumble? And we see a whole bunch of animals running. And sure enough, Bugs is like saying, "Hey, what's a duck? What's a duck? What's a duck? What's a duck?" He's saying it really, really fast, which I thought was nice. I mean, by this point, it's in the lexicon. Everyone knows it, so they can do a little spin on that.
Hey, what's all the excitement about? What's up, Doc? What's up, Doc? What's up, Doc? What's up? What's up, Doc?
And sure enough, Bugs actually stops a turtle there who explains that, run for your life. It's the Tasmanian Devil. I don't even know what a Tasmanian Devil is.
What's cooking?
The Tasmanian Devil's on the loose! Run! Run! Run for your life!
I don't even know what a Tasmanian devil is.
And sure enough, we've already covered what a Tasmanian Devil is, but yeah, a lot of people in the US or the world for that matter probably wouldn't. So yeah. Did you know before you watched any Tasmanian Devil shorts?
I don't think I did. Growing up, I just knew him as Taz, mainly from, like I said, the cartoon, because that was more of my first exposure. And then when I got older, I think it was sometime in elementary school that I learned what an actual Tasmanian devil was. And I saw the pictures, and the first thing I thought of, I'm like, how do they spin? I was like, what are they like? Literally, they look like how a rotisserie chicken or pork like spins. It's like on the thing and it rotates. I'm like, do they spin? I was a dumb kid. And you can confirm,
Well,
I
it's
guess, Anthony, they don't spin in real life, right?
they do not, at least not in that
Okay.
fashion anyway.
So I finally learned
But
at 36 years old, they don't spin.
exactly. But I do have to wonder though, with all those animals running away, is that a polar bear in that shot? It looks like a polar bear, unless it's a regular bear but colored incorrectly.
Come on,
I don't know.
clearly you know that the guys at Termite Terrace did their research. I mean, when
Hmm.
Bugs takes out the book, and just in case you guys didn't catch it, here are some of the animals, and sadly, polar bear's not on the list. So actually, I'll read for you the definition of the Tasmanian Devil: a strong, murderous beast, jaws powerful as a steel trap, has a ravenous appetite, eats tigers, lions, elephants, buffaloes, donkeys, hippopotamuses, rhinoceroses. I think that's how he pronounced it. It kills me every time. Giraffes, octopuses, moose, ducks, rabbits.
Here it is. A strong, murderous beast. Jaws as powerful as a steel trap. Has ravenous appetite. Eats tigers, lions, elephants, buffaloes, donkeys, giraffes, octopuses, rhinoceroses, mooses, ducks.
Rabbits.
Rabbits? It doesn't say rabbits here.
But no polar bears. I don't know. Maybe Bugs didn't have the revised version of that encyclopedia. So
Of course, exactly. And, we see the Tasmanian Devil, and sure enough, he's this real force of nature. And I can see why the audiences would have enjoyed it at that time, not counting the revival in the 90s or whatever, but at the time, seeing this show for the first time, this wild, crazy character. I can see why he was popular and why the fans wanted him to come back, because I don't recall any other character being like this, where he's a force of nature, but at the same time, he's not incredibly stupid. He can be a little bit stupid, but not like, as they say in The Simpsons, a duh idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, and also too, I don't want people to assume that I hate the character. I don't. I like Taz, but maybe his charm doesn't always work on me, but he's held up to the test of time. One thing I will say though, now that you're talking about the revival of Taz in the 90s, I mean, I like the character design of Taz from the 90s, for like Tasmania and Space Jam, whatever. But seeing the earliest version of Taz where he's more of, I guess the only word I could think of is he kind of is like in the shape of a potato. Whereas his revision in the 90s, he's like, broader shoulders and his arms stick out more. But here he looks like a potato with legs. And I kind of dig that look for Taz, and his facial reactions, like his eyes, aren't as expressive as they would become years later.
I actually never really saw too much of that Tasmania show, if I'm being honest. But looking at this version of Taz being just, I guess, pure, I guess is one way to put it. I don't know. I like it. Works really, really well.
Taz Prime.
Taz Prime, indeed. And speaking of the 90s show, I actually met Jim Cummings, and everyone was asking for Winnie the Pooh and Tigger and all that, and fair enough, I totally get that. Or Pete. But me, I had to go for Taz. I definitely wanted a message done to me with Taz's voice, and well, here it is.
Hey everybody, it's Jim Cummings here. Now, I know you don't know me, but I know you do know Anthony, and he knows Taz, Tasmanian Devil. And if Taz were here, he would say, wow, about that. Taz, say hi to Anthony. Have a nice day.
So yeah, Jim Cummings, lovely guy, and I definitely encourage you to get a video from him if you can. So yeah, I just thought I'd add that in here. But yeah, as I mentioned, he's not a da idiot. He knows how to write. How he writes "and rabbits," and his handwriting's pretty nice too. I'll definitely would. Bugs is like, okay, so the Taz wants to eat rabbits. And for the rest of the short, it's pretty much Bugs using reverse psychology to quote unquote help Taz get something better than a rabbit. He even shows his leg, which is quite gamey, like quite skinny, which is fair enough. There's not much meat on them rabbits. And yeah, we get to our first gag, which is, okay, I'm going to help you get an appetizer. Groundhogs, because of course they're going to now start digging. And it's a simple gag. 2 holes are being dug with Bugs burying the devil. And I tell you what, Mel's delivery of Taz in that bit, why for you bury me in the cold, cold ground?
I love that line.
Kills me. Kills me every time.
What for you bury me in the cold, cold ground?
It's just his face. He's sort of looking at him like, really, dude? Why are you doing this? Why? Just that delivery, perfect. And Bugsy, of course, is like, wait a minute. What's that smell? I smell chicken. What? Chicken? Just
Is
chicken?
that how you react to whenever there's chicken around? Up, chicken.
Now, take it easy. Take it easy. Take it. Wait. I smell chicken.
Chicken?
Is that you?
Yep. That's me. That's me indeed. Chicken.
And then you snarl after.
And pretty much. Yep, that's why I'm banned at the local KFC, because they can't take it anymore. So Bugs ends up creating a chicken with a product that came from the mind of Homer Simpson, surely, which is liquid bubblegum. Pre-goo.
Free goo.
I mean, it's like, really? Why would there be liquid bubblegum? I don't know. Was that some sort of a product where the kids would have this liquid and then it turns into gum in their mouth? I don't know, but if there's more to this, definitely let us know. And naturally, bicarbonate of soda does exist, and when you're middle-aged like us, well, you'll know bicarbonate of soda all too well. So it's an exciting product, kids. So that does exist, and Bugs, if this acting thing doesn't work out, he's a good sculptor, so he sculpts that nice-looking chicken. And I guess as a dog lover, Matty, I'm sure you appreciated Taz acting like a dog, just whining just before he gets to eat that quote-unquote chicken, right?
Luncheon is served. Luncheon is served.
Oh, it's definitely Nina wanting a treat.
Yeah. It's like, like he's just whining like a dog. And the gag itself, I've got to admit, it was a bit unexpected. So he hiccups and he goes into blows a giant balloon, and sure enough, Bugs blows it away. But I didn't think the Bugs was going to pop the balloon. I hadn't seen the short in a while, by the way. And he ends up in a tree. But you'd think if Bugs didn't pop that balloon, Taz would have just gone away and see you later. But anyway. So we got that gag, and next up we get a very quick gag involving a so-called pig that's an inflatable life raft. Nice little quickie one. I mean, we all know what to expect here. Taz eats it, becomes inflated. See you later. Not much to it.
Oink, 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 oink,
But the next gag, though, what did you think of that fake deer and how it looks? That stupid face. I mean, I cracked when I saw that.
It plays into what you're saying before, where Taz is a legitimate threat. I would say him and Marvin Martian are probably his two most dangerous opponents. But I mean, in brute strength, clearly Taz is a huge threat. But man, is he stupid. The fact that Bugs just literally drew a happy face on a pail and threw antlers on it, and that fooled him. And like, I just see how ridiculous that a deer looks, and it cracks me up every time I see it.
Yeah. But he actually was not fooled straight away, which makes his character work, in my opinion, where he's stupid. But initially, he's just like, no, you're not going to trick me again. But Bugs does this other thing, showing that I guess Taz has a very short-term memory. So Taz is seemingly onto Bugs and doesn't fall for whatever the hell that deer was. And it's like, oh, you got to use that sling over there. It's like, look, there's a deer over there. But you got to use that sling. And, well, as you'd expect, he goes on that little sling and chops down the tree and see you later. But in the sign of economics, we only see the aftermath of Taz being knocked over with stars around his face, which, fair enough, you don't need any more than that.
For the sake of economy and the sake of selling the gag more, I think that was a good choice. And just showing how, Bugs at the end of the day still is the winner in this story.
And we see a Disney guest star. We see Bambi approaching. Well, I'm assuming it's Bambi. I don't know. It's a cute little deer that approaches, and Bugs tells him to scram, and he says mean things. And we zoom back out, and we see that Taz is behind him, not looking too happy with what Bugs is saying about him. He's like, flattery gets you nowhere, and you can't fool me again.
He's a stupid
Flattery will get you nowhere, and you can't fool me again.
Rule me again. Well, that wasn't Bambi. That was his Australian non-union equivalent.
But cleverly, Bugs, in an effort to save this baby deer, says, no, that's made of straw. But then Taz says, but you're not. So again, he can be stupid, but not too stupid. A da idiot, right? But anyway, and so he chases him through, and I love how the background gets involved in this one, where you see how Taz tears things up to the point where he's even tearing through a mountain range.
On one of those industries that like burrows through mountains, he would be one heck of a worker.
He
It
would
was a
indeed.
good gag too, especially considering we're at that point now where the backgrounds are a lot more stylized. And it still works really well because, I'm thinking that kind of joke wouldn't read as well. The older, more lush backgrounds of the 30s and 40s. I think it was even funnier here because since it's more stylized, you could sell the hilarity of the joke faster.
And in the next bit, Bugs somehow loses Taz. I mean, I guess Taz is just too wild and is not focused on what he's meant to be doing. And there's a phone that just happens to be there. I mean, cartoon logic. We gotta love that.
Of course.
And Bugs orders an ad dispatch for a Tasmanian Devil wanting to meet lady. Object, matrimony. Yes.
Tasmania. I went to Tasmania and Post Dispatch. Oh, brother, what I got up my sleeve shouldn't happen. Hello? Tasmanian Post Dispatch? Insert this ad. Lonely Tasmanian Devil would like to meet Lonely Lady Devil. Object, matrimony.
So I guess that those dating ads work really well because, sure enough, we see a Tasmanian airline. And just a point of fact here, in case anyone was wondering, no, Tasmania does not have their own international airline. You're thinking Qantas here. But within Tasmania itself, they have a small regional airline called Airlines of Tasmania. So there is that, in case anyone was wondering, and now you can sleep soundly tonight. okay, because I know a lot of you are losing sleep over whether Tasmania have their own airlines. But can we just agree the she-devil look is incredible? I mean, look at it. The more I look at it, the more beautiful in its own way it is. I mean, the big shoes, the gown's already on. I mean, she's prepared. She's ready to settle down, this one.
I also love in that scene when Mel Blanc, again, killing it for all three characters, but do you eat it's speaking in Devilese. And it was probably a mistake, the fact that the she devil and Taz have like you have a and the she devil has a deeper voice than Taz, but I think if that was intentional or not, just sells the funniness of the scene even more.
You take this.
Ah.
And
I now pronounce you devil and devilish.
I just love the way Bugs looks as a padre, how he's got that hat on, just happens to be there. And sure enough, yeah, they get married. And that's probably my favorite bit, by the way, them two getting married. It's the most unexpected twist of how to end this short. You show this to anyone who's never seen this before, I don't think anyone would predict that there would be a wedding at the very end of it. I would highly doubt it. And that's why I like that part of the short, I think. And in case you're wondering, we end right there where Bugs says, "All the world loves a lover." And that phrase comes from an essay on love by Ralph Waldo Emerson, in case anyone was wondering. So it actually is it's a play on what he said. So there you are. So, Manny, I think it's time for a certain music time. What do you think?
It's
chicken.
that's my new translation of the words of Manny's music time in Devilese.
Expected for all future Manny's music time from now
Oh,
on.
great. So the first song was written by
Chicken.
and then the next cue was by
Chicken.
All right. So obviously the cartoon starts off with The Merry-Go-Round Broke Down by Cliff Wren and Dave Franklin. Their birthdays were not that long ago, I think, for both of them, end of September. So happy belated birthdays to the songwriters of The Merry-Go-Round Broke Down. Then, as you mentioned before, that beautiful scene with Bugs singing The Tales of the Vienna Woods by Johann Strauss. Then it's followed by a tune called Cherie, I Love You, which was new. And you hear bits and pieces of it throughout the cartoon. You hear a tiny little bit of
Chicken.
real. I mean, duh, the chicken made out of gum. And what I really like when Bugs takes out the tiny, eensy, weensy little xylophone and he starts playing the melody of shortening bread, but they sound like chimes, like huge orchestral chimes instead of like a weensy little xylophone. And that's one of those things where I'm like, was that an intentional joke? Or, they were just like, whatever. But I thought that was funny. It's like they sound like chimes, but it's a tiny little xylophone.
Luncheon is served.
You hear a song called Asleep in the Deep for a few seconds. You hear Blowing the Man Down. Blow, Asleep in the Deep and Blow the Man Down were around the same scene when Bugs was making the raft with the pig, or the pig raft. Raft pig? Pig raft? Close enough. Now, the cue sheet does not have this here, but I heard a very eensy weensy fast reference to Old MacDonald, again with the pig. So you hear wah, 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 and then it goes back into what it is. So I don't know if that wasn't written in the original cue sheet or whatever.
Oink, 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 oink.
And then, of course, during the wedding, you hear the bridal chorus, Here Comes the Bride by Richard Wagner. And then after I Pronounce You Devil and Devilish, you hear Felix Mendelssohn's Wedding March. I actually sang at a wedding last week, and they played Mendelssohn's Wedding March at the end. Now, this last cue, again, I have to go back and watch the cartoon again. It's a little reference of Masses in the Cold, Cold Ground by Stephen Foster. I think that might be the music that you hear when Bugs does his little spiel at the end, but I have to do another listen. But I'm just going by what's in the cue sheet itself. So that was a little bit of Manny's music time for this cartoon. This has been a while since I've seen it, and I was looking at HD version of it, and it looks really, really nice. Just want to shout out the restoration job that they did over at Warner's, and it looks super great. I would like to see it again on a big TV because I was watching on my computer screen, but it was fun to revisit this one again. I'm not a Taz hater. I'm not a Marvin Martian hater. This character's held up for 70 years, and he's still in like the upper echelon of Looney Tune characters. So he's doing something right.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of a rating, okay. I like Taz. I like this short, but it's not a go-to one for me. And it's actually been a while since I've seen this one. But as far as the Taz shorts go, this one's definitely up there. I think it's probably my favorite. I would honestly say. And I had a lot of fun with this. It's simple. Taz is a wonderful force of nature and a great foil for bugs. But I don't know. But am I in love with this short? Perhaps not. But I don't know. I reckon 8.5 out of 10 is probably my score for it. Like, if it's on, I'll watch it. I'll laugh with it, but it's not one that I would automatically pick. So, yeah, I think 8.5 out of 10 is probably my score there.
I was going back and forth. I would say 8 out of 10. I was leaning towards 8.5. I was like, I didn't laugh as much as I thought I would. There were parts I definitely laughed, and I had moments where I was like smiling, but it's not a bad short at all. And again, it's been a while since I've seen the other Taz shorts, so this is probably going to be the best one. Actually, you know what? We'll see when we get to Be Devil the Rabbit because there's certain scenes in it that stand out to me in particular, but I don't want to talk about that until we get to that short. And that's in was it 1957? And hopefully I'll be on for the commentary for that one as well. I mean, hopefully you won't get comments, people in huge letters saying, "No, don't let Manny talk about Taz because he doesn't like Taz." Blah, blah.
But that will do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And until next time, take care.
Oh my God, that kills my voice. Goodbye.
Chicken?
All the world loves a lover. But in this case, we'll make an exception.